The airport terminal hummed with the familiar chaos of departure gates and rolling suitcases. Eleanor stood near gate 47 watching travelers rush past with their carefully planned lives tucked into carry-on bags. At 62 she had learned that airports were strange places where everyone existed in temporary suspension between one version of themselves and another. She clutched her boarding pass to Phoenix where her daughter lived. It had been 18 months since they had spoken. 18 months of silence that felt heavier than any luggage she could carry. The call had come 3 days ago. Her daughter's voice on the other end sounding small and unfamiliar. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you." The words had been clinical and frightening. "Stage 2. Treatment starts next month. Can you come?" Eleanor had said yes before her pride could form the word no. Now standing in this terminal she felt the weight of those 18 months pressing against her chest. The argument seemed so foolish now. Her daughter had made choices Eleanor hadn't approved of. A career change. A relationship that ended. Dreams that looked different than the ones Eleanor had imagined for her. And Eleanor had let her disappointment build a wall between them brick by stubborn brick. She felt tears beginning to well and tried to blink them away. A woman her age crying alone in an airport. How pathetic that must look. That's when she noticed him. A man in an elegant dark suit standing a few feet away studying the departure board. Something about his posture suggested he was waiting rather than hurrying. Distinguished looking with silver threading through his dark hair. He glanced her way and their eyes met for just a moment before Eleanor looked down embarrassed to be caught in her moment of weakness. She tried to steady her breathing. Tried to remember the counselor's words from years ago about managing anxiety. But the tears kept threatening to spill over and suddenly she felt so desperately alone in this crowded terminal. Before she could think better of it, Eleanor found herself walking toward the stranger. He looked up as she approached and she saw kindness in his eyes. The sort of kindness that made people safe. "Excuse me," she heard herself say. "I know this is strange, but I wonder if I could ask something odd of you." He tilted his head slightly. His expression open and patient. "Of course." Eleanor felt foolish, but the words tumbled out anyway. "Could you just hug me for a second? Just for a second. I'm sorry. I know that sounds crazy. I just really need someone to hug me right now." She waited for him to back away or politely decline. Instead he simply opened his arms. "Come here," he said gently. "It's okay." Eleanor stepped into the embrace of this complete stranger and let herself cry against his shoulder. He didn't pat her back or make soothing sounds. He simply held steady like an anchor while she weathered her storm. The hug lasted perhaps 15 seconds. Maybe 20. Not long in the measure of time but infinite in its kindness. When she finally stepped back, Eleanor wiped at her eyes. "I'm so sorry. That was completely inappropriate." The man smiled and it reached his eyes in the way that real smiles do. "Not at all. Sometimes we all need a little human connection. Are you all right?" She nodded, though they both knew it wasn't quite true. "I'm flying to see my daughter. We haven't spoken in a long time. She's sick. I'm scared." He studied her face for a moment then gestured to a nearby row of seats. "Do you have a few minutes before your flight?" Eleanor checked her watch. "About 40 minutes. May I buy you a coffee?" She almost declined out of habit. Then changed her mind. That would be nice. They walked to a small cafe near the gate. He ordered 2 coffees and they sat at a table by the window overlooking the tarmac. Outside a plane was being loaded with careful precision. "I'm Richard," he said, extending his hand. "Eleanor," she replied, shaking it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment sipping their coffee. Then Richard spoke. "I lost my father 5 years ago. We had been estranged for nearly a decade before he died. A business disagreement that turned into something uglier. Pride on both sides. I never got the chance to fix it." Eleanor felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry." He nodded. "The thing is, we convince ourselves there will always be time. Time to forgive. Time to reach out. Time to say the things that matter. But time is the one thing we can never be certain of." Eleanor stared into her coffee. "I was so angry with her. She made choices I didn't agree with. I thought I was protecting her by being honest about my disappointment. I thought that's what a mother was supposed to do. Hold her children to high standards." Richard was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "May I tell you something my wife taught me?" "Please." She said that love isn't about having standards. It's about having presence. She said the people who changed her life weren't the ones who pushed her to be better. They were the ones who showed up consistently with open hearts even when she wasn't at her best. Eleanor felt tears returning. Your wife sounds wise. She was. I lost her 2 years ago. I'm so sorry. Richard smiled sadly. She taught me most of what I know about being human. I spent so much of my life building things. Companies. Wealth. Success. She spent her life building connections. At her funeral there were hundreds of people. Not because she was important in any public way, but because she made each person feel seen and valued. That's a legacy worth more than anything I ever built. They sat together watching planes take off through the window. After a while Eleanor said, I don't know if my daughter will forgive me. Richard turned to look at her directly. Eleanor, the fact that you're on this plane says everything. The fact that you're showing up even though you're scared. That's what matters. Not the past 18 months. This moment right now. She nodded, feeling something shift in her chest. A small opening of possibility. Richard reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. He wrote something on the back before handing it to her. This has my personal number. When you get to Phoenix I want you to call me. Whatever your daughter needs. Medical care, treatment options, home support, experimental trials. I have resources and connections. Let me help. Eleanor looked at the card, then at him, confused. I don't understand. Why would you do this? Because someone needed a hug in an airport and I happened to be there. Because I didn't help my father when I had the chance. Because my wife would have done this without a second thought. He paused. And because sometimes life gives us opportunities to be kind and we should take them. Eleanor looked down at the card again. Only then did she notice the company name. Richards Industries. She recognized it vaguely. Something to do with technology and medical devices. She looked back up at him with wide eyes. I'm not looking for gratitude, he said quickly. I'm looking for purpose. Let me do this. The boarding announcement for her flight crackled over the speakers. Eleanor stood slowly and Richard stood with her. Thank you, she said. For the hug. For the coffee. For listening. Call me when you land, he said. Promise. I promise. She started to walk away, then turned back. Richard, your wife was right about presence mattering more than standards. But I think the standards thing matters too. We can hold people to high expectations while still showing up with open hearts. It doesn't have to be one or the other. He smiled. You're right. Thank you for that. Eleanor boarded her plane and found her seat by the window. As they took off she thought about second chances and the strange mercy of timing. How sometimes we meet exactly the person we need precisely when we need them. She thought about her daughter and all the words she wanted to say. Not apologies, though those would come. But the deeper truths. I see you. I accept you. I am here. The card sat in her pocket and she touched it occasionally during the flight like a talisman. Not because of the money or resources, though those might help. But because it was proof that kindness still existed in unexpected places. That strangers could become angels if we let them. When she landed in Phoenix there was a text from Richard. Safe travels, Eleanor. Remember, you're not alone in this. She texted back a simple thank you, then called her daughter. The phone rang 3 times. Then her daughter's voice, tentative and hopeful. Mom. Sweetheart, Eleanor said. I'm here. I'm at the airport. I'm coming to you. There was a pause. Then her daughter said, I'm so glad. Eleanor felt tears streaming freely now, but they were different tears. Me too, baby. Me too. She walked through the Phoenix terminal toward baggage claim. Toward her daughter. Toward whatever came next. She walked with her head high and her heart open. Ready finally to be present. Ready to show up with the kind of love that asked nothing and offered everything. Behind her in another airport terminal Richard checked his phone and smiled. Then he continued with his day, carrying his wife's legacy forward, one small act of kindness at a time. The way she would have wanted. The way he had finally learned to live. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the largest ripples. Sometimes a hug from a stranger reminds us that we are all connected in our vulnerability and our hope. Sometimes we get the second chances we don't deserve but desperately need. And sometimes that is enough.